and so it's okay, right? Like the city is complex enough that, for example, if you have too much pollution, then people start moving out of your city, and you start losing tax revenue, and then your city starts falling apart. And so they have to clean up the pollution, and then like if there's no education, then your people are, then they can't do advanced jobs, and so then the income is low, and so then you don't get as much tax revenue, or like if their health, if you don't have hospitals and clinics, then their health is low, and then they can't go to work, and so they don't have enough tax revenue. But then all of this is simulation based, like it's just the interacting components of this simulator that creates, in a way, it does create emergent gameplay, because ultimately you want to have a bigger city and you want to make more money so you can build a bigger city. So that is implied that you want to just build a bigger city over time. But to do that, you have to balance the different parts of the city simulation in order to get the city to work. So the whole city is like a giant machine that you're trying to get to function. And so, like, there's no levels, there's no bosses, or there's kind of levels in the sense that, you have increasing densities. But there's no levels, there's no bosses. It's just like the whole game is managing the simulation. And that's fine, and SimCity is fine. Like it's not a bad game at all. The idea being that the simulation is complex enough that just playing with the simulator, or just tweaking different things or trying out different things in the simulator, is enough entertainment, and like it's enough of a puzzle for people to do that without requiring you to tell them, okay, build 10 houses, all right, build 10 factories, and all right, now make $1,000. I mean, that sort of stuff is in the game, and maybe I guess it does improve the game, but it's not necessary. Like, even if you don't have that stuff, people would just build a city, and they'll want to make things bigger. Was it here? I guess it was. Like, that stuff doesn't really need to be in the game, in my opinion. Like the game wouldn't fall apart and fail to function if those like objectives were not specified for the player in the game. I'm also like thinking of City Skylines as I say this. And in fact, City Skylines is the one where it tells you quite specifically, like, you have population levels, and then every time you reach a certain level, you unlock new buildings. So that is more explicit in City Skylines than, say, in SimCity 4. And SimCity 4 was a perfectly fine game. Like, there's nothing wrong with SimCity 4. Despite it not being as explicit in telling you what your objectives are right now, right? Like, it doesn't tell you, okay, you need 5,000 people in your city right now. It doesn't say that. Like, City Skylines says that, but SimCity doesn't. And SimCity 4 was a fine game. You don't need to say that to people. Like, people just build a bigger city even if you don't tell them to. Because the simulation is complex enough where just doing that is interesting. And, in hindsight, what should No Man's Sky be? No Man's Sky should have been Sim Space, is what it should have been. And by Sim Space, we're talking about a game where the space things interact, like there's interacting space elements. And it's not just you landing on a planet and just pillaging minerals from the various rocks and plants and whatever, and then building your ship. Like, that's not a simulation. I mean, the funny thing is they made a game instead of a simulation, and it ended up being bad because of it, right? So Spore, like, people said Spore was all simulation and no game, and therefore it was bad. And then No Man's Sky was not enough simulation, and therefore it was bad. It's like, it seems contradictory, doesn't it? It does. It seems contradictory. But I think it's just complexity. That no matter what it is you do, it needs to be complex enough for it to be interesting. And maybe that's the real answer. Is how much complexity does your thing have? And Minecraft, coming back to Minecraft, is just not. The complexity has not really increased. The way the elements interact have not really increased in scope. And they're clearly not trying to increase the complexity of the game. I think they're doing the opposite. I think they're trying to make the game more kid friendly, like less complex. It seems like they're doing that. I mean, pistons were interesting. But pistons, were they like, you know, pistons? What did pistons allow? Pistons allowed like elevators, which was kind of cool. Except that it became glitchy in multiplayer because lag. It didn't work well with lag. Pistons, like what can pistons do? It's mostly decorative things. Pistons mostly do decorative things. Like there aren't that many functional things that pistons do. Right, like pistons don't interact with, like in what way do pistons interact with mobs? I guess you can use pistons to create suffocation traps to kill mobs, right? That's one thing you can do. How do pistons interact with mining? It doesn't. Like you can't use pistons to mine for you. How do pistons interact with? You know, like I'm trying to think of how we can use the mechanic in a way that makes the game more interesting. And I'm having a hard time coming up with anything. I suppose you can use hoppers to do bulk smelting. Can you do that? Like, can you like make a? I guess you can. So use hoppers to feed fuel into a furnace and to fuel raw materials into a furnace, and then you kind of pull the completed stuff out and into storage. Like, so I guess you can use hoppers to automate smelting things and cooking things. So that's a thing you can do. But the problem is the mining is not automated. So you still have to, like, if you're trying to smelt smooth stone, you can use a hopper to like feed the material in and pull the material out. But it doesn't make it any faster. And for example, it's not that much better than, say, just having a lot of furnaces. Like if you just kind of put 20 furnaces side by side in a room. That's like a simpler way of accomplishing using hoppers to feed one furnace automatically. You see what I mean? Like it's not, it doesn't save that much work. And like you can, I mean, alright, you can use hoppers to like scale things up, but like eventually you still have to feed the raw materials in by hand into the chest by hand. You still have to get the cobblestone by hand. So like the scale, like it doesn't really help scale up your industry because there are still bottlenecks despite everything else. And the smelting part is not really the time, like it's not really the time consuming part anyway. Like it was never the time consuming part. The difference between having hoppers pull materials out of a chest and put it back into the chest when it's done, like that is the time that saves. Like if you don't have a hopper, you just walk up to your 20 furnaces, click like 40 times. Like that takes like a minute, if that, to just kind of load things into a hopper. Whereas the grabbing the materials from a mine, mining the materials, that's the thing that takes hours and hours, which is what we're doing now, like chopping trees. This is the thing that takes hours and hours. The other stuff just takes several minutes. So they give you an automation option that saves you several minutes, but they don't give you any automation that saves you the task that takes several hours. Is what's going on. Pistons, hoppers. Is there any way to automate mining? There isn't. There isn't any way to automate mining. If there was a thing that mines a block for you, and by that I mean, for example, it turns a wood block into an item that can be picked up by a hopper. If there was a block that does that to other blocks, then we can automate mining. I think then we can create a system of pistons. Would that be possible? To automatically harvest a tree farm? It might be possible then. Man, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing? So a block that harvests a block next to it in a certain direction, then you can like push it along using pistons, and then it would just harvest everything in front of it, and you collect everything with a hopper, or you just kind of flush the place with water into a line of hoppers. You would be able to automatically harvest trees. See, like stuff like that, I can just think of that in my head. Like something like that would allow for complex machinery that automates resource collection. And I guess you can also set one up in a, like you have to build one, but you can like set it up in a mine. But I guess that would be too like because like you have to mine out the area around it to set up the pistons, and then you have to put all the pistons in place, and then you turn it on, and then it harvests all the stone in a certain amount of area. I don't know if the setup time is shorter than the time it takes to just pickaxe all the stone. I guess it would be. Blocks that harvest other blocks. That's what we need to automate block. I mean, of course. I mean, once you say that, of course, that's what it is. But then once you have that, like I'm just imagining the machines that would do this stuff, like using pistons to create this machine. Like all of a sudden, I'm interested. Like I'm interested in trying to make this machine now. So it's this sort of complex interaction that I think is interesting. And Minecraft just doesn't. They just don't add stuff like that into the game. They add more animals for you to do nothing with. Like, I guess you can kill the animals and get fur or something, like a fur coat out of a polar bear. I guess you can do that. Like they're not increasing the complexity of the simulation at all. I guess there's mods. I do know there's mods. There's what's it called? Bucket and Techit. Techit is the set of mods that enable industry, right? I don't want to use mods. I really don't. I want Mojang to put this in the game. Because mods are, I mean, no matter how well made the mod is, it's still a bit of a hack. And Minecraft continues to not have very good mod support. So it's a little bit hacky, right? Everything that is modded is a little bit hacky. Is it Tekkit? Let me just Google this. Tekkit, Technic platform. Download the Technic platform. I mean, but Tekkit also has a lot of stuff that I don't want. There's a lot of stuff that I want. There's a lot of stuff that I don't want. There's 62 mods. Wait, how many mods are there? Anyway, so it's like a mod packs. Wild West. What is that? Infinity Evolved? What does that mean? Mod packs. Trending. Most popular. What is this stuff? I don't even know what this is. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can do. I don't even know what this stuff is. Anyway, all right, back to this. They put pistons in. They put slightly more advanced redstone stuff in a while back. But again, like redstone computers, it doesn't really matter because you can't. Like redstone computers don't interact with the world outside of the redstone circuits. You see what I mean? I mean, I guess that's pistons. So like, can you make a thing that weighs animals and then sorts them depending on how much they weigh? Is that a thing that you can do in Minecraft? Like with, I know there are. Is it a gold pressure plate? Let me just go pressure plates. But do different animals weigh different things? They don't, right? Pressure plate, stone, wooden, redstone component, activation. Wait, aren't there? There's only wood and stone. Aren't there more ones? Weighted pressure plate. Alright, weighted pressure plate. Gold and iron, light weighted, heavy weighted. Number of entities required to produce signal strength. See, like, it counts the number of entities. But for example, different animals don't weigh different things. It's like, why? How is that useful? How is it useful to weigh how many blocks or how many entities are on a thing? It's like you have half a stack of cobblestone on this pressure plate versus a full stack of cobblestone on this pressure plate. How is that ever useful? Like, I don't know what you can use that for. Whereas if for example, a cow weighs more than a sheep, and a sheep weighs more than a chicken, for example, then you might have like you can make a sorting machine for your farm to like sort the animals into different harvesting mechanisms. So you can just have like a field full of animals of different sorts, and you flush them all into the sorter, and then you cook them all depending on what they are, and then you kind of put the materials into a box. Yeah, but the animals don't weigh different things depending on how heavy they are. I don't know. Or like if hostile mobs weigh different things depending on how heavy they are, then maybe you could have like a mob trap where you separate the spiders from the zombies, right? Because the spiders are a different shape, and you know, the cooker doesn't work for the spider unless it's a different shape, and so on and so forth. But the mobs don't weigh different things, or like you don't have a mob detector, right? So a lot of this stuff It's like there's pieces of machines that don't combine with other pieces to form useful things. They're just pieces that might be useful, but they're not useful yet. Like the game is not finished. Minecraft is not a complete game. It's so wacky. It's like the game doesn't actually have. It's not a full game somehow. It's just continually in beta, I suppose. Right? Yeah, pig. Right. What other game is just simulation and it's complicated? Interestingly, Flight Simulator is really boring. Like Flight Simulator is just a simulator, but it's actually kind of boring. I don't know how Flight Simulator managed to sell so many copies as to keep itself afloat. But I swear Flight Simulator is like the most boring thing in the world.